Good evening, Year 3. It's actually Saturday evening while I'm recording this. And although it's a beautiful day outside, still in the garden, I've actually come down to the summer house at the end of my garden to try and find a little bit of peace and quiet so that I can have a little chat with you. Um, would you believe I've actually started this video about 5 times now, and I was just talking to you, and then I got interrupted, so I've had to stop and start again. So fingers crossed we might get 5 minutes so I can have a little chat. Um, it's a couple of weeks since I last put on a video, but actually in that time I have been so pleased with all the lovely work that I've seen that you've been doing all about our topic, the Romans. It's seeming to me and to Mrs. Cotton that you are really enjoying it and you are taking on the challenge of doing it all at home so well done. Please keep it up. So this week, what are we going to be doing? Well, we're still learning about the Romans. Giving you a little bit of a baking challenge this week with a Roman recipe. Now, I know ingredients are a little bit hit and miss at the minute as to whether you've got the right things at home. Please, do not worry if you haven't. Do the best that you can. Okay? If you haven't got all the ingredients you need to make the recipe that we've given you, then have a look for another recipe that you might be able to make yourself. I'm actually going to be in school later on this week, and I'm hoping to be able to phone a few of you and have a little chat with you. But whilst I'm in school, I'm also going to have a go at making this Roman recipe that we've set you myself with some of the children there. So I'll let you know how it goes later in the week. For your history this week, we would like you to find out a little bit about a feature of the landscape that the Romans built and left with us and is still visible in the country today. It is a place called Hadrian's Wall. Now, many years ago, when I was a lot younger, but older than you are now, I was very lucky that I actually got to go to Hadrian's Wall as part of my learning when I was at university, and I spent a week walking, not the whole wall because it's very long, but part of that wall, finding out more about the Romans, and I thought I would share a little bit of that information with you now. Okay. Um, there, I have also included a PowerPoint on your home learning page to help you. But first of all, I want to tell you just a little bit about this impressive. So if I look as if I'm reading from some notes, I have to be honest, I did make a few notes before I started recording this, just in case I forgot some of the things I wanted to tell you. So first of all, in the year 122 AD, so that's 122 years after Christ was born, the Romans invaded Britain finally, remember, in 43 AD. So quite a few years later, in 122 AD, the emperor at the time, called Hadrian, who was over in Rome, in the actual Roman capital itself, decided that he wanted to define some of the some of his kingdom, some of his empire, if you like. And he decided that the best way to deal with this would be to build a wall. Now, the Romans, as you found out last week, were very good at building roads, and we've still got some of those Roman roads in our country today. They were actually pretty good at building all sorts of things. So amazing, in fact, that actually all these number of years on, we can still see some of these things. So, another one for you to add to your timeline that some of you have started. 122 AD, the Roman Emperor Hadrian decided that a wall must be built in Britain. Now, why did he decide this? Well, Scotland was never ever part of the Roman Empire. The Romans tried to invade it on various occasions, but actually the people of Scotland were quite fierce and they did lots of fighting back, and it was never successful. So they decided in the end that they would not take Scotland as part of the Roman Empire, but that actually that England would stop and just in the border of Scotland, and that would be where their kingdom ended. So the thing was, those Scottish people, called the Picts, kept wanting to come over, and they kept trying to fight with the Romans too. So the emperor decided that the Roman soldiers had to build a wall to stop them coming in. Okay. Now this wall went from one side of the country to the other. It went from the east to west. Okay. And it was very long, and it was very high, and it was built out of stone. So it was very, very strong. Um, they also decided that actually they were going to build this wall to keep the Scottish people out from coming into Roman Britain. Actually, it was a good way to earn some money too, because if anybody did want to come in, then they would charge them some money to do so. So the Romans were pretty clever when it came to that. After the wall was made of stone, actually, historians believe it may have been covered in plaster on top of the stone and given a whitewash, so covered completely in white paint. And that meant that you could see it for miles and miles and miles around. And that kind of helped the Romans to show how powerful they were. Because if you imagine in the countryside, it was all green and hilly, and then suddenly you saw this huge, huge white, what you believed to be a wall going across the country, then you would actually think, gosh, that means something. So the Romans were trying to show their power with that. Okay. So I said it was a long wall. It was actually 117.5, so 117 and a half kilometers long. Okay. It was 6 meters high. So that's very, very tall. If you think that you are about a meter up to a meter and a half tall yourself, this was 6 meters high. And it was also 3 meters wide. And that was very specific, that measurement for the width of it, because that meant that two Roman soldiers could stand side by side and march up and down their part of the wall to protect it and to stop people coming to attack. And it was always very important that they had two soldiers there at any one time. Okay, so it was not just a wall. Along this wall, there were little turrets. There were what they called mile castles, and mile castles went every 1.5 kilometres. And in a mile castle, there could be 20 soldiers at any one time. Okay. In between that, every 500 metres, there was a turret, and they also had about every 8 kilometres a fort that they built along the wall. And that fort could hold up to 1,000 soldiers. Okay. There's a very famous fort, which again I've visited, called Hastings. Okay, and this will give you an idea of the size of this fort. So not only was it home to 1,000 soldiers, actually within it there was a hospital, a granary where they kept their grain for making bread and flour and things, barracks for the soldiers to live in, a workshop for them to build and make all their tools and things, and even some toilets. Not every fort had toilets, but this famous one did. Okay. Um, I do have a little bit of a challenge for you, but I will come back to that in a minute. So, why did they have these forts there for the Romans to live in? Well, if a Roman soldier was working along Hadrian's Wall, he didn't get to go home at night. That was where he was based. Okay, that was his home as well. So they needed these forts for the soldiers to live in. Eventually, communities grew up around the forts. And in these communities, these villages around the outsides of the forts, they would have things like bathhouses, they would have shops, they would have houses for the soldiers' families to live in, they would have temples, all the things to have a little village life. And actually, lots of those remains can still be seen today. And it's because of those remains that we're able to investigate and find out lots about how the Romans lived. Okay. They also had a Roman road running alongside Hadrian's Wall called Stainsgate. Now, they needed the road because the soldiers needed to be able to get their supplies up to the wall. They needed to be able to get their weapons, their food, to travel from one place to another along that as well. The the wall itself, was actually used for 250 years. Okay? It was maintained and repaired by the Romans for a very, very long time. And it's a very popular place for people to visit today because they get to see some of what it was like. Okay, it doesn't look the same as it would have done all those thousands and thousands of years ago, but it does show them what Roman life could have been like. Okay. Now I said I had a little challenge. In Housesteads, the famous Roman fort, I said there was a granary where they kept their grain. and the grain was kept dry by something called a hypocaust. Now, this challenge is not on your home learning sheet, so this is just a little bit extra if you would like to. What I would like to know is, what is a hypocaust? Okay, hypocaust. Where else might the Romans have used a hypocaust? And what was its purpose? Okay, you can put your answers on the Purple Mash blog, please. And don't forget to add the word hypocaust to your word bank too. Now, talking of your word banks, I hope you're still adding all these new Roman words to it that you're learning along the way. I'm going to ask you, instead of just having them written down, if you've got them on a piece of paper, which is great, why don't you have a go at building your own Roman wall? Why don't you make your words into a brick? Maybe cut out some paper. Maybe see if there's somewhere where mum or dad doesn't mind you pinning it up, and you can see if you can build a wall. Maybe not quite as long, tall, and wide as Hadrian's Wall. Maybe you can build your own wall full of your Roman words that you are learning. Okay? Have fun with your learning. Look forward to finding out how you get on.